I was lost, trying to find something that I couldn't see. And I remember that at times I cried a lot. I cried and didn't know why. I had a void inside. I realized that I had never had invited God into my life. Never, and it was right there in front of Lulu's bar that I said, God, if you exist, enter my life. Tell us about your life before Christ.
Como era a sua vida antes de Jesus?
My name is Carla. I am 60 years old. I live here in Sete Lagoas, Minas Gerais, but I lived in Australia. I lived in Dubai, and now I'm here in Brazil again. I studied psychology, but I'm a pastor today. Well, I was born into a family of 10 kids, and I was number 10. And we were a happy family. But we had a problem with the church, with the school my sisters studied, a problem with religion. And my sisters were expelled from this school. So from there, it was as if we closed the door to God in my house. And me as the youngest, I felt a little lost and without direction. And our family was a little out of direction, right? Without God's principles. So I grew up. In my teens, I used to go out with my friends a lot. I learned how to drink with my friends. And I used to have many boyfriends. I had many relationships. I studied psychology, looking for an answer for life. Where did I come from? Where am I going to? And always continuing my life and trying to find the love that I missed. My father died when I was 7, and he was a big dad to me. And I lost this father. So I guess it got to me somehow. And I tried to find this love somewhere else and couldn't find. I used to drink a lot. I learned to drink from my friends, right? I worked, studied, but I was lost trying to find something. I wasn't finding. And I remember that in some moments I had a crying fit. I cried and didn't know why. I had an emptiness inside me, and it's affected my life. And then when I was 29, my friends, most of them were already married. And I had a huge desire to get married. I didn't find that person that I was looking for. But it's that thing. I wanted to get married. But I was going in the opposite way of marriage. So it didn't help me. So I found myself lost. Until everything changed. How did you know Jesus? What was the point that really touched you? So this desire of mine to get married took me back to the psychologist's office. And I spoke to him at the office. I need a miracle. And he just looking at me. And then 2 weeks later, I had an encounter with God. I went back to him and said, I found the answer. Jesus is the answer. The Bible is the answer. He are truth. But how did it happen? I had a friend who was very lost. He was an alcoholic. He used to drink pure alcohol. This person, he was a person who had a great family, rich father and mother, and he lost his father, his mother and sister in a car accident. So he and his brother turned their house into a bar. There was a pool table at their living room, and they were very lost. And I met this person, and this person went to an Adhonet meeting. Don't know if you know Adhonet is a meeting of Christian businessmen. And I went in. He went to a meeting at someone's house and they talked to him. Several things. That was in the morning. At night, I met him in front of Lulu's bar in Belo Horizonte. I was there because I had nowhere to go. Not that I like to go to Lulu's bar, but he told me everything he heard that morning. And he started talking to me. He spoke like this: "You are a slave to your work. You are a slave to your money." And that even irritated me. I was even a little upset. I said, "What's that?" Then he spoke like this: "Look, God won't come into your life unless you invite him. He is kind. He is knocking on your door. And if you open, he will enter." And suddenly it was touching my heart, because I realized that I had never invited God to come into my life, never. And it was right there in front of Lulu's bar that I said, "God, if you exist, enter my life." And that was it. From there, someone gave me a New Testament, and I started reading it and like it. Thing that had never happened. I had never read the Bible in my life. And I started reading about Jesus and it filled me up. And I said, that's what I want. I felt peace. That's what I want in my life. I give everything to have this peace that I felt when I met Jesus, when I believed in God. And then I started studying the Bible with a friend of mine that by coincidence had had an experience with God also. And we began to study the Word, and I began to understand why Jesus died on that cross to save me, why he needed to save me, why I needed salvation. And I was understanding and I was amazed. And my conversion was radical. Suddenly I was with the Bible under my arm and talking to everyone, to my family. I told them, for my friends, right, what Jesus had done. Many accepted and converted, but many fought with me. They even kicked me out of their house. But it was wonderful that God did at that time, because my nieces accepted Jesus, my sister-in-law, my brother. It was a true revival in Belo Horizonte. We held Bible study meetings at my house, and from there a church was born. In BH, a Bible study in the south area of BH, where many have been saved, and that church is still there today, right? And it was very wonderful, but I converted at the age of 29, and I still had this desire to have this husband. And then for 7 years I prayed for this husband. And at the same time, in those 7 years I felt the calling from God to the nations. And I told God, I surrender. I give up. I was surrendered to God in a way that it was necessary. It was really necessary for him to fulfill his purposes in my life. What your life is like now after Jesus. Then, those desires of my heart to marry, have a child, go to the nations, He fulfilled them all. I got married in Australia, met my husband. I prayed for 7 years. I didn't have a boyfriend in that time because I said I don't want a boyfriend. I want my husband. And I went to Australia in 2.5 months. We got married. I was already 36 years old. He was 37. And we got married in Australia and it was glorious. My friends here in Brazil, everyone watching. The wedding was the most beautiful thing. And God gave me a wonderful daughter, an artist, a beautiful thing that I love a lot. And from Australia, He took us to various nations. I went to several nations. I remember once before I go to the nations, this girl, a normal church member, she was not a pastor, nothing like that. She prayed for me. God said God made you prophet nations. He will take you to many nations. But it was impossible. I had no money. I had nothing right. And God, He provided because it was His purpose. So from Australia we traveled to many nations. Then I lived in Dubai for some years. And it was a glorious time. 4.5 glorious years in Dubai. Then I went to Oman. I lived 2.5 years in Oman. And then God brought me back to Brazil. Because He had a purpose here for us. My husband loves Brazil. And he brought me back. My enchanted prince brought me back to Brazil. But why? Because God has a purpose. And it's still for the nations here in Brazil. So I'm very grateful to God. It is worth to give yourself. It is worth surrendering. It's not a waste of time. It is precious. People watching this testimony, what would you say to be saved? Look for the people who need to have an experience. With this God, I would do what I did. I was sincere, because I didn't believe in God. And I told if there is a God, please, reveal yourself to me. That's all my prayer. And He revealed Himself gloriously. So my advice to you is now. Don't wait painful times. Oh, I'm not ready. No, it's today. You say, God, I want to have an experience with you. Pour out your heart. Don't let pride come in and deprive you of the wonders of God, of the peace He gives, of the joy He gives you, of the blessings He brings, right? So my advice to you is to speak up today. Lord Jesus, I want to experience this love. I surrender to you. Show me if you are real. Just this. The rest you can leave it with Him.